Today, we're gonna put my thumbnail generator app live. We're gonna deploy the front end with Vercel. We're gonna deploy the backend with Railway. We're gonna connect it to my GoDaddy domain, and my product will be live on the internet. Follow along and let's dive right in. This is also the first time I'm deploying backend on Railway. I've deployed my website on Vercel before. Check out the video on my channel if you want to. I'm using the AI agent, the Claude AI agent that we opened here, Opus 4.5. I'm using him as my guide through the deployment process. It says here as the preparation step, we have bought our domain. We have created an account on Railway. I just connected it with my GitHub account. So I logged in or signed up with my GitHub account. I think that is vital to just simplify the process of Railway pulling code down from my GitHub repository. And the same is true for Vercel. So when I originally signed up for Vercel, I also used my GitHub account to sign in. So the deployment of my website was very straightforward and simple. Let's tell the agent to guide me through step by step. We have done all the preparation necessary. Can you now guide me step by step through the deployment? First of the backend in Railway, then of the front end in Vercel, and then also the connection to GoDaddy, to my domain that I have purchased already. Also, make sure you send up some research agent to research all of the code base so you understand the structure, the file structure, the folder structure, and all of the necessary aspects of my application for you to guide me in the right way. As far as I understood, is that Vercel can handle front end, but cannot handle backend. And Railway is one of the main backend providers to host your backend. We're going to look at the platform in a second. Clearly, you can also host front end and backend in Railway. However, when your application is coded in Next.js, since that is a product from Vercel, there are some performance benefits. It kind of deploys Next.js front end more flawlessly or slightly better than Railway.js would do. I'm not an expert, probably both hosting platforms will do a fantastic job, but my AI agent recommended me to use Vercel. Also, they have a generous free plan that I don't need to pay for my front-end deployment at the moment, so I only pay for the back-end deployment on Railway. Let's see how it all plays out. I will try and follow the recommendation of my AI agent, and then we will see how it goes. Step one that we need to do is deploy the backend to Railway. I go to the Railway app. I will click on New Project, Deployment from GitHub. Connect your GitHub account if not already connected. Select your repository. Yeah, that makes sense. Configure build settings. Root should be the backend. Okay, build command npm. Yeah, npm start. Add environment variables. Okay, that will be second step then. And then click deploy. We're here in Railway. And by signing up with the GitHub repository, it automatically opened kind of this page, like a new project. And it asked me for how I want to create the new project. And I'm going to click on GitHub repository. It now opens this pop-up page. I'll authorize Railway to all repositories, I guess, and install and authorize. It asks me for the password. I'm signing in. Then now we click on new GitHub repository, and look, now it found all my repositories. And what we want is the thumbnail generator. There you go. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to scroll down to the build section, and in the watch path, we need to add the following URL, which is thumbnail generator, which is my repository, but slash backend, because I have a backend folder and I will deploy the backend. Okay, in the build command, I will have npm install and npm run build. We have added our file path to watch /backend, and we have added 2 commands, that is npm install and npm run build. Then we scroll down to the deploy section, also in settings, and we're going to add a custom deploy command, which will be npm stan. All right, there you go. I think with setting this up in the build and in the deploy section, we have the settings set up correctly. The main repo is our thumbnail generator app that is connected from GitHub. Now, next, we would need to add our environment variables. So I added all the variables that I needed, that I have in my .m file. Every time I just clicked here on new variable, and I added all my secrets here, which is for my email service, from Vercel AI key, the image generation platform. Frontend URL is just a placeholder. I will update that once I have the URL from Vercel. My Google API keys, ideogram API key, resend is the email server with my Stripe keys, and my backend keys from Supabase. So this is the complete list. I added like 18 variables, everything that kind of built up in my .m file during production. Once we have set this up and we configured the settings to the backends, let's try again and press here deploy. And it's applying changes, but I don't know, it is initializing. And now hopefully it will work. The first one failed, but we also didn't have the settings. So the deployment is failing, and it says build image, failed to build an image, npm and install secret fall AI not found. Now it failed. It says Docker image, Railway app, failed to request head HTTP. I needed to bug fix a little bit off camera. And the thing was, the deployment kept on failing, as you can see here in the deployment logs. And I fed the agent, I kept feeding it the error logs. And the first big issue was in the settings. So we had the source repo here always set up correctly. But below, there was a tiny button, a tiny link that then unfolded this root directory. So here we needed to point it to the thumbnail generate backend. So the agent was before always talking about the root directory, but I didn't see it because the root directory was like this docs here, just a small link to be clicked, and then I could add actually the backend root directory, obviously an essential step. We still kept the watch path as backend, so that's still something it is watching. However, the key was to have this here in the root directory. So that way the settings now is definitely complete. And then when we look at the second last deployment, there were some TypeScript errors that I could feed the agent, and it fixed it in my code. And then the deployment now worked. So it looks like this. The last deployment name is fix Supabase auth admin type errors. I guess that was the last thing that was then pushed to GitHub, and then it pulled it automatically and deployed it successfully. So now we need to deploy Frontend, which is the next step. I am already in my Vercel account. Again, I connected with GitHub. So now I clicked on new project, and it shows me all my Git repositories that I have on GitHub. And here also shows my thumbnail generator app. So I'm going to click on import. Thumbnail generator. Let's just deploy that. It's going to take a while. It deployed successfully. Status is ready. So I have that project live. We went to settings and we adjust the root depository, not the entire code base. We only wanted the front end. I had to do some debugging off camera because the deployment kept to fail here in Vercel. And I'm going to go a little bit into the debugging process that I was using, some insights that I gained doing that the first time. And maybe it will save you some time if you go down the same journey. Anyways, I just quickly wanted to show that now the last deployment worked. Happy days. And we get a domain from Vercel that looks like that. And if we click it, it is already live. So that link here, thumbnail generator vercel.app, I could already share with my friends or some users. And look at that, my landing page is live. That looks like this. Scroll down, quick explanations, some early thumbnail examples, and some FAQs and a footer. So pretty nice. I think that's good enough for an MVP status. And then I can log in with my account, and I'm here at my thumbnail generator. I can add my persona and say, generate a high-tech thumbnail with Nino. And I would be generating that thumbnail, and it would add my character, and then I can iterate from there. There you go. That is a first version of myself in a high-tech thumbnail. Obviously, I can iterate from there. I can add text, my thumbnail. Look at that. I can put the text. I can move the text to whatever place I want it. I can increase the text to a bigger size. All right, I can add some text. Here is a text working station that if I increase it, you can have different styles. You can make it any different vibe. You can put the font, you can put the placing, typography, you can change. So that's a way to add basically a good text to your thumbnail. And like this, we can iterate from here. I can change specific areas of the thumbnail, like the background, and it would only change the background. Can you add some yellow touches in the background? Apply changes. And then it would leave everything alone. The character, it would just change the background in this scenario. That's how you can iterate and step by step get to an ideal thumbnail vibe. Look at that, it made the background now yellow. So that's pretty cool. And step by step like that, we can get to an ideal thumbnail. Your sessions are saved. So that's pretty much the status of our product. Now, let me go to the deployments in Vercel and give you some debugging tips. So first of all, as you can see, the last deployments, they all worked. However, before here, there were many tries that did not work. So let me click on one of the former deployments that did not work. Here you will see build failed, status error, and then you would have the build logs, and anything that is yellow is just a warning. So it doesn't mean it is a mistake that made the build fail. However, it's also good to maybe fix those or let this check from AI why those warnings are coming, and maybe AI can improve. Now, if you click here, originally that was red. If you click on those are the warnings with the exclamation marks, and you can go down, and if you click on the X, those are vital errors, right? So those are in red, and those are then basically the errors that you would need to fix in your code, or your variables, maybe your environment variables, maybe an API key was required here, the super base key was not correct. So like this, you can copy the errors or copy the entire building logs, feed it to AI, and step by step improve until I guess the build will succeed. Also, if I click here on my thumbnail generator and I go to settings, you will find in the tab here environment variables. This is where you need to add all of your API keys, all of your service keys, all of your tools and databases from Supabase, for example, everything the front end might need to actually work. You'll go on add environment variables here, and you would just enter the client name and the value. Very important, also something happened to me. Be very aware if you copy it out of your .env file in Cursor, for example, that you don't copy any space by accident. If you add the key and the key is correct, but in the end is a space, that you don't visually per se see, it will not work. So that happened to me as well. And I needed to debug for a while until I realized that I had saved one of the keys that was very long with an extra space in the end. I think those are the two most important takeaways from Vercel. Add all the environment variables here, make sure they're spelled correct, obviously, and no spaces are safe with that. And then you can do in the logs from the deployment, find the errors that are read and feed them to your AI agent, potentially to fix those. Similarly, in Railway, if we look at all the deployments, also now it worked. Previously, it failed a lot, and you can always click on view the logs. There you will see here the logs. You can actually download those here on the button as a text file, for example, and then give the text file the AI agent. This is when the backend deployment failed, right? Then you can do that. However, if the build worked, but there is some issue with the backend, you can click on top of here that says logs. You will see the backend logs, and you can see, maybe let's go 7 days. And there you can see the logs here that the front end was calling the backend and things didn't work. So here you can also see the logs of any mistakes and feed that to UAI the same way. Here, fetching invalid API key, there was the space mistake, for example, that we found like that, looking at the logs, but now the newest logs are looking all green and all fine. When you click here on your deployment, you go here to settings, and one very important thing, I think I already mentioned it earlier, that here the root directory points to your backend. That was very important, and in variables here, that all of them are spelled correctly. You have every key, any API key, any connection to any tool in here. Make sure they're all spelled correctly, double check that, and no space is anywhere, because it can lead to problems. Well, that's about it. Those are quick learnings from Railway and Vercel on how I kind of got to the debugging of the deployments. I hope that helps. And now let's go to the last step, which is actually connecting our GoDaddy domain. So the product is live under the domain that we bought. The domain that we bought is vibe-thumbnails.com. And this is the one we will now connect. We will need to go here in the settings to the DNS tab. And then we would need to do a few things here. So the first step is I'm going to copy our domain. And we're going to go to Vercel, our front end. We go to settings. And we're going to go to domains. And we're going to add existing domain. I'm going to add that, connect to environment production. That's good. That's our domain. We're going to save that. And now it added those, but it's an invalid configuration because we still need to configure it correctly. We clicked on the thumbnails, especially the one that has the complete address. And if we open the tab, it tells us here the CNAME. And it says the name and the value. And that's what we're going to need to add now in our GoDaddy domain. We're going to copy that. We're going to go to GoDaddy. We are already in our DNS settings, and we're looking for CNAME. We're looking for the CNAME that has the www, and we're going to click on edit, and we're going to update it with what we just copied from Vercel. We're going to save it. It says speichern because I'm German, but it was successful. Just by adding that, I believe that the vibe-thumbnails.com is already working. We can also click on it and look at that vibe-thumbnails.com is already opening my page, and we are live at our domain. That's how easy it was to set that up. Amazing. I'm very excited about that. I'm not gonna lie. So this is absolutely amazing. We coded this product from scratch, and now it is live on the internet. Our first real web application. Well, to finish and make everything correct here, there's still this domain that doesn't have the www. We're still gonna click on here, and it has the type A value. That this works here, the vibe-thumbnails.com without the W. We need to find it type A. The symbol name is @ and the value will be this one. We're gonna copy the value. We go back to domain in our DNS records. There's only one A type. Very good. There's already the name or the symbol @, so we just need to edit it and change the value. There you go. We save that. It's saving, and now when we go back to Vercel and refresh here, look, now it is actually already connecting. Look, it's generating the SSL certificate. This was just after a minute or two, and I believe then the configuration will also be good. This brings us to the end of the episode. What an exciting one it was. We deployed the backend on Railway. We deployed the front end on Vercel. We connected Vercel, our front end, to the GoDaddy domain. And now our first web application is live. And the first users can actually use my product. For you guys who have been following along, I will leave a code down below. The first 100 users can use this thumbnail app for free, the creator tier. Look for the code VIBE100, and I hope you enjoy it. If you like what you see, we're gonna keep building products in public. The next one is already being planned. I hope to see you in the next episode. Please subscribe, leave a comment. See you next time.